Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the virtual literary salon to celebrate the English publication of the House of Impossible Love. I hope that you can all hear us and see us fine. If you have any difficulties, you can always type into the chat and let someone know if you can't. I'm very, very glad that you're all here today, but I am most excited to be presenting the other two presenters to you today. So we have, of course, the author of The House of Impossible Love, Cristina López Barrio. This is Cristina's first novel for adults. It has sold over 100,000 copies in Spanish. The rights have been sold in more than a dozen countries. And Cristina is here with us today from Madrid. So, bienvenida, Cristina.
Hola, muchas gracias. Hi.
Great to have you here. And of course, we also have Christina Morgan, who was the editor who acquired the book when she was working at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. Christina has worked with dozens of renowned authors. And today, Christina's with us from New York. Hi, Christina. Great. Good to have you both here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a chat about the book, about the editing, the translation, but we're also going to leave plenty of time for questions because I'm sure that all of the participants here today will have questions for each of us. Also, because there are two Cristinas, it will be easier to keep things straight. I'll refer to each one by Cristina Morgan or Cristina Lopez, so we don't get confused. I'm not trying to be extra formal. So we'll start with you, Cristina Lopez. You studied law.
Yeah.
You're a lawyer, practicing a
Yes.
lawyer as a lawyer. How did you go from being a lawyer to being a writer? Do you write full time?
Yeah. I always want to be a writer. I love literature, but I study lawyer because I need to earn my life. I need to work
Right.
earn some money, and writing is so difficult. Then. While I was working like a lawyer, I continue writing.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Understand me? I'm so sorry. My English is a little bit. Understand me? Okay.
Absolutely, it's perfect. It's great.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay.
So while you were working as a lawyer, did you have a writing routine where you would write in the morning before you go to work, or write on the weekends, or how did you manage two things?
Oh, no, I work when I was free time and after working by night and the weekends too. Mm-hmm.
Right. Hard to juggle two things.
Yeah, it's very hard working all the time, but for me it was very important the writing, and I need to fight to get that I want. It was writing and publish my stories.
So first you published a young adult novel, and then you published this, La Casa de los Amores Imposibles.
Yeah.
How did the story of the House of Impossible Love come to you? How did you think of the story?
Ah, okay. ¿Cómo empieza la historia?
Yeah, ¿cómo empezaste? ¿Cómo pensaste en esta historia?
The story, okay, begins with a character, Olvido Laguna, and then I want to, contar la historia. Te que lo digo en español, contar la historia sobre una mujer, un personaje femenino y que era muy hermosa y que estaba maldita por precisamente por su belleza, que se llamaba Olvido y nadie podía olvidar. Quería contar también. Okay, translate.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So first of all, you thought of the character whose name was Olvido, who was very, very beautiful, and you wanted to write a story about that, about how then she was cursed. But when you were thinking of the story, did you see the whole story, or did you start writing and discover the story? O sea, que cuando empezaste ya tenías en mente
Sí.
toda la historia o empezaste a
No.
escribir y llegaste a esa historia.
No. I have 3 or 4 versions about this novel. I
Okay.
was writing it about working in this novel 6 years, more or less. And
Wow.
I think that the story was growing and changing with me, with my life. I lived a lot of time with the Laguna women, and the story was changing. Okay.
Very interesting. And Christina Morgan, when we were chatting the other day, you told me that it was kind of an interesting story how you found the novel, how you heard about it. Can you tell us about that?
Hi. Well, I read Spanish and Portuguese, and historically, Newark Harcourt and Houghton Mifflin had a pretty robust translation program. Some of the authors that I've mentioned in my bio are like major world authors, and I was really interested in finding something new to translate. And let it be known to a lot of foreign publishers and agents that dealt with foreign literature that I was open to reading manuscripts in foreign languages, which not a lot of American editors either don't have the capability or they're just not interested in it because it's just, most people don't think of translations as like a big money-making thing. Maybe with like the success of books like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, they opened their minds a little bit. But I think they've only opened them to Swedish thrillers. And so in summer publishing it's a lot slower, and I went through all these like dozens of Spanish language manuscripts, like trying to find something that I liked. And I didn't, and I was really disappointed. And then I got an email from the foreign rights manager at Random House Mondadori in Barcelona. She's Polish, actually, Cristina. She has a very Polish last name. Her first name is Cristina. And I saw the description for the House of Impossible Loves, and I requested it, and when I got it, I couldn't stop reading it. And so I sent a reader's report to my editor-in-chief, and I said, I really like this, and she let me acquire it.
Wow. That's fantastic. I think, as you say, you're in a really privileged position because you do read other languages, and many editors don't. They just rely on someone else's opinion of the book.
Yeah, it's always good to be able to read it yourself, of course, but of course, sometimes people have relationships with people that do read other languages and they trust their taste. But I guess nothing is can make up from being able to read it yourself.
Great. Okay. And then, in terms of then deciding on how to have something translated and who to have translated, I remember when you contacted me that you had already commissioned a sample or got a sample from another translator. And then you were looking for others in order to compare and decide. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about how that process often works?
Sure. When Justina told me that she had a translator in mind, and I said, great, well, I don't have to look for one then.
Right.
And so she sent the book to a translator who read it and submitted a sample, but it just wasn't right. And it's not that this woman was a bad translator, it's just sometimes, it's just one of those things. It's just not everybody is the right translator for a certain type of book. And that's really important. I mean, I could even tell you times where we worked with like extremely famous translators, and what they turned in is just, they just, you know, they weren't either weren't invested in the project, or they just weren't the right person for it. And so my boss suggested that I, you know, reach out to other translators, and I knew your name, Lisa, from other books. And so I just looked you up on the internet and sent you an email. So that's how I got in touch with you.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. That was great. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, that's the wonder of the internet. It's like a big digital phone book.
It
Gift
is.
and the curse.
That's right. It's fabulous. Well, for me, translating a sample can often be really difficult because there's not often time to read the whole book. Usually I'm reading just a portion of the book, and then I'm translating only a little bit of it. So it's hard to get, you know, all of the flavor of the book that I want at the beginning. But one thing I do when I start is when I read it, I tend to write down just words that describe the way the book made me feel or immediate things that I noticed. And so when I did the sample, I wrote down 3 words particularly. I said that the book to me was descriptive, evocative, and yet also a little bit dark. And I think, Cristina Lopez, that those 3 words, descriptive, evocative, and dark, when I think about it now, I think that they reflect some of your literary influences, the influences in the book. Now, you've told me that there were sort of 3 main influences: Latin American writers and some of the Spanish writers.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about those influences on this book?
Yeah, the influence of Latin American magical realism is very present in the novel, as on many occasions, because the narrative takes place along the fine line that separates reality and fantasy. I love this literature. I read it during so many years. When I was 70 years, I read Cien Años de Soledad, de Gabriel García Márquez. Yeah,
100
it was,
Years of Solitude.
Yeah, and I love this book, and I start to read Latin American literature. But I think in the House of the Impossible Love, there is a Spanish tradition, Spanish literature is present too. For example, Campos de Castilla de Antonio Machado. This book was very important for me because Machado used the landscapes to show the feelings of the characters. No, do you understand me? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And
he wrote.
Yeah, tell me.
He wrote specifically about the area where Antonio Machado wrote about Castile, which is where this book takes place.
Yeah. For example, other influence I think is Federico García Lorca. because they in his work La Casa de Bernarda Alba, he described a very rural and very close society, like the Castilian village of the House of the Impossible Love. For example, other Spanish poet Luis Cernuda. I love this poet, and he write about I don't know how to say in English, nostalgia, about,
Yeah,
you know,
nostalgia.
nostalgia,
No,
about
yeah.
the impossibility of forget to someone that you love. Then, okay.
Okay.
I think it's in this novel there is a mix of influence, Latin American influence and Spanish literature. I think it's a mix. No? It's like mm, I don't know how to say, una mezcla, una
Yeah, it's
mysticism.
a mixture,
Okay,
a combination.
okay,
Yes,
combination.
yeah,
Yes, the combination that because it's the influence that it marked me like a reader, lectora. Do you understand?
a reader. Yes,
Okay,
exactly,
okay,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think they, like you say, all of those aspects they're very clear. They're very noticeable in this book that it is a combination, a mixture, and I think that's what makes it such an interesting book. And women, of course, women are prominent in the book. The book is about
Yeah.
primarily women, but not just
Mm.
any women. All of the women are very strong characters.
Yeah.
They're they're powerful characters. Was this something that you decided initially to make them very strong?
Yeah. Um, I want to write about women that they fight against the society is lo que está establecido en la sociedad, the society rules.
That's
Um,
right, Rose.
okay, okay, and they fight to choose their destiny. No, in this time in Spain, um, women need men um, to a woman uh, to live alone, or it's not very, ¿cómo se diría? Bien visto. Do you
Yeah.
understand?
Yes,
Okay,
not seen well. And because the
okay,
novel starts in about the late 1800s, right?
yes,
Yes.
yeah, yes. Mm.
Mhm.
And then are women very strong and very, and they were very free and fight against the society. For example, like Olvido, no?
Yes. Yes. So the character Olvido in the novel is probably the one who has to fight the hardest against society.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, great. So, Christina Morgan, there are all these influences in the book, and some people classify or label or consider the book a book of women's fiction. Other people promote it or talk about it in terms of being a book of magical realism. Um, when I read the book, I think that, like you, I saw many of the more literary elements in it as well, in that the descriptions are very poetic. And yet, it's a story that is a family saga, which can be considered mainstream fiction. So how do you see the book? Do any of these labels fit? Do all of them fit? What do you think of labels?
I think they fit in their own way, but I'm not a huge fan of like labeling something unless I have to label it for a bookstore or what we call metadata, like when we have to enter a label in a computer for the Amazon or something. I feel like with fiction, and particularly like, if you do more upmarket or literary, or like unless it's like blatant romance, like Harlequin, I think that you have to just see everything as its own individual thing, unless it's like a very clearly defined genre like romance or mystery.
Mhm.
Does
I
that
find
make
it.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I find labels hard because
Yeah.
they don't always fit. But I sometimes do find it difficult when people say to me, "What is this book about?" It's a hard book to describe because I think it is much more complex than it seems. How do you describe the book when you talk about it?
I would say it's like a character-driven novel about a family of women that spans several decades that has elements of magical realism.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's
We
right.
must classify things.
Yeah, and even more than classifying, it's just to
Describing
describe
it,
the
yeah.
book.
I mean, sometimes, like if you were to describe a book like the Ten Drum, like by Gunter Grass, what would you say? It's a novel about a family that has a deformed child that
Yeah,
spans several decades in Germany. It's like,
yeah,
it's its
it
own
is.
thing.
It is, it
Yeah.
is. That's true. So, Cristina Lopez, when you were writing the book, did you ever think that it would be in 7 languages?
Oh, no, no. Uh, it it was a marvelous surprise for me, because for me it was a dream published the book in Spain. Only published the
Mm-hmm.
book in Spain. It was a dream, and
Yeah.
when the book is published in other countries, oh my God, I can't believe, because before publishing in Spain, uh, I don't remember, maybe in 8 or 9 months before, Germany and Poland and Greek buy the rights of the novel, no?
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was marvelous. I can't, I couldn't believe this, no? It's more than my dream, ¿no? The
Yes.
reality is supera al sueño, quiero decir, la realidad supera el
Yes.
sueño.
Yeah, it's more than even your dreams, exactly. And was it difficult to get a publisher in Spanish? Did that take a long time for you?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Yeah,
hear you so
was it difficult to get a publisher in Spanish? Did it take you a long time to, after you wrote the book, to find a publisher?
No, not so much times. I
Mm-hmm.
was very lucky because the book, the novel, liked so much to do my editor, and then this was very quickly. No, it's
Excellent.
very lucky, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. But it was also, so you had an editor, of course, because you had published your young adult novel.
It's a different
Sorry.
publisher, right? I think they're
Difficult, difficult
different.
Was it
publish.
was it different? A different publisher than your first book?
I don't understand really. I couldn't
Yeah.
hear to you.
¿Era un editorial diferente que el primer libro? ¿O el
Ah,
mismo
yeah, I'm sorry.
editorial?
No, no, it was different. It was
Oh, a
different.
different
The
one.
first,
Okay.
Yeah, it was different. The other editorial, it was about, I don't know how to say, literatura juvenil. It's
Yes, young
literature for
adults.
for teenagers, okay?
Yes,
And this is for adults, no? It was
right.
different.
Different publisher. Okay, great.
Yeah, different publishing.
And so, Christina Morgan, when so you've worked with authors who are not translated and authors who are translated. Is the editing process any different for you between a translated or an original novel?
Yeah, I would think of the translation. I mean, I was trying to do this with translated books, but normally they've already been through some sort of editorial process, a translated book, by the time it comes to English. But with a non-translated book, I think the first thing you should look for is structural issues as opposed to just writing and line editing, just to make sure the concept is good and everything makes sense. And with a translation, it's more about making sure the book reads good in English. I think that's always the goal you're trying to tell yourself. And I think also when, if there are any translators in the group, the question I always tell people to think about is, does this sound good in English? As opposed to, the goal should always be to write good English. I think of it as a form of communication with this, or else we just put everything into Google Translate and abolish mankind.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Not gonna happen, is it?
No, Google's still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it does. Do you ever look structurally, though, at novels that are translated?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do that as well. It's just normally not to the level that you do with an original language. But yeah, if I see something that's inconsistent or something that doesn't seem right, I'll make an effort to change it. I think most authors just want their book to be as good as possible, so.
Yes, yeah. And Cristina Lopez, what was the editing process like in Spanish? When you got the publisher, did it go through a lot of editing before it was published?
I don't understand. Could you?
Cuando publicaste en español,
Sí.
cuéntanos un poco del proceso de editarla. ¿Cambió mucho o poco o cómo era trabajar?
Sí. Amplié un poco algunos personajes que gustaban mucho en la editorial, como por ejemplo el personaje de Bernarda. Les gustó mucho a los editores y lo hice un poquito más largo. Y volví a reescribirla otra vez entera, sobre todo la segunda parte. Así que trabajamos en ella durante 7 u 8 meses.
Okay, so that's where a lot of the structural editing took place in terms of your editor, who wanted particularly the character of Bernarda, who was one of the cooks in the house, and so you expanded on that and revised the second half of the novel over a period of about 8 months. Yeah, that's something that we often, I think, as translators, feel lucky about, that books have gone through this editing process already. I felt very lucky in this whole process to work with both of you in the translation of the novel, on the translation, because I could write to Cristina Lopez and I could ask you questions. What did you mean? Was this person like this? Or the character or the phrasing? And I could write to Cristina Morgan and I could ask you, okay, all of the little details, like how you like things, to see things done. But also I think we talked about things like I wasn't sure. I didn't want to call people mother or grandma because it takes us out of, Spain and brings us too close into North America. But what was also nice in working with both of you is that you also gave me a lot of freedom as a translator to, as you were talking about Christina Morgan, just make the book read well in English. So it's very nice to have that relationship. Cristina Lopez, do you have a relationship with some of your other translators as well?
No, during the translation, some write to me asking some questions about words, about Spanish expression that they didn't understand so good because it was very Spanish. I could, and then, but after finish the translation, finish the contact. It could be
Right.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, no estamos en contacto. I'm very
Yes.
happy that que no haya sucedido contigo, que sigamos
Oh,
en
thank you.
contacto.
Yes, she's very happy that that didn't happen with us, that we do stay in touch and stay in contact. Me too. Do you like to answer the translator's questions? Do you like them to get in touch with you when they're working on the book? Are you happy to answer those questions?
Yeah, I like to get in touch with the translator during the translation. I think it's very important collaborate together, because I think sometimes the translator needs to know that the writer wants to say really in one expression or one situation, and in this novel the language sometimes is very poetic,
Yeah.
or the expression or the situation are very typical from Spain, and sometimes it's not difficult, and I'm not like so much to collaborate to speak with the translator so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as a translator, I appreciate it when an author is willing to do that. What about you, Christina Morgan? How closely do you like to work with translators, or what's that relationship like?
I think it's important to work with a translator. I don't. I sometimes think two heads are better than one in cases like this, and you can have someone to bounce ideas against and solve problems, because I think a lot of translation is problem solving, and there's only so much you can do with computers and dictionaries and whatnot. And sometimes, it could be something like a context or a historical event that someone else understands better and you need clarification. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just better to talk to someone about it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's very true because often, any translation, in my opinion, is an interpretation. I can understand something the way I understand it, but it may not be the way the author intended, or it may not be the way another person will understand it. So by having these three perspectives, author, translator, and editor, I think you can produce something that's much more faithful, that's much more whole.
And even one of the translators we worked a lot with at Harcourt was Margaret Jewel Costa, who does
Hmm.
Spanish and Portuguese. And all the years
Yes.
that she's been translating books, she still has like a group of native speakers that she relies on to help her with context. I mean, she's an English woman, so she might know everything about Portuguese, but she probably didn't live through 20th century Portuguese. history. So,
That's
so she
right.
always has this thank you and acknowledgments of these people who, I guess are just like her helpers, or just maybe they're other translators. I don't know.
And I think a lot of translators do work with like another editor to help them, before it even goes to the publishing house, but to help them, find all the little things that you can't see anymore when you've been working on something for a long time. Um, so as a translator, I feel that to a certain extent, the book, in terms of the English book, The House of Impossible Love, is a little bit mine because I do it differently than another translator would do it. But for you, Cristina Lopez, how does it feel? What is it like to have books out there in other languages? Sometimes languages you don't speak. Do you
Yeah.
still feel like the book is yours, or does it feel distant somehow?
Various things. For example, the book in I don't know, in the Israel in Hebreo. I don't know
Yes,
how to say the
Hebrew.
name. Yeah,
Hebrew.
it yeah, it was very strange because I can understand, and and the book I look in the other side. Okay, do you understand
Yes.
me? Is
Yes, yes.
sometimes I have the feeling that this is my book, really, this is my novel. I don't know, and and then I look there, I pass the pages, and I don't know. It's okay, and I look for the names, no, Olvido, Manuela, and
Mm-hmm.
then I recognize it's.
Yes, yes.
Recognize only the names, no, but I think it's very exciting, no, when you can read your name, and sometimes I don't understand the title, and I think, oh, it's the House of the Impossible Love. I don't really understand anything, no, but it's very exciting. This is strange, so it's exciting.
Yeah, it must be strange because
Yeah.
like you say, this is something that took you 6 years to write. It's a very big part of your life, and then it's something then you can't read in another language.
Yeah.
It's a strange
No,
situation.
yeah, very strange. I'm very happy with your English translations because it's the only language that I can understand more or less. For me, it's very exciting. Now I'm reading my novel in English, and it's very, and I can learn English, and it's very strange to learn me in other language, no, but I think it's very nice, really, very nice, and thank you so much for your
Oh,
translation, really, it's
it's
marvelous.
my pleasure. How about for you, Christina Morgan? Because you did read the book in Spanish and you did read the book in English, of course.
Mhm.
Um, how do you feel about the two books? Do they feel like the same book to you? Do they feel different? What is that like?
Yeah, they feel like the same book. And as I was going over the translation, I realized that because I read the book in Spanish and it takes months for it to be translated, and then you're reading it again, and then you're going. And then it's kind of fun to come back to it and think, well, and read the things that I like so much about it. Again, it was sort of like revisiting again as a first-time reader. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Neat. Excellent. Great. Well, I see we have a few questions coming in here. So I would like to encourage all of the participants, if you have questions at all, please type them into the chat box, and Elizabeth will pass them on to me to ask either Cristina Lopez, Cristina Morgan, or myself. So make sure you pass along your questions, and I'll get started asking some of them to you. So for Cristina Lopez, this is a question from Amal, and she says, "Oh, do you have any interest in having the book translated into Arabic? Because the story has some similarity to Arabic culture."
Arabic culture.
Yeah.
No, si se ha traducido al árabe, me pregunta.
Sí, o si quiere que esté traducido al árabe.
No,
Porque a ella
sí, le gusta.
reconoce algunas similitudes, sí.
Sí, sí, no, it's not translate into Arabic. No, but I would like so much because I love this culture. One of my favorite books is Las Mil y Una Noches.
A
In
Thousand
English.
and One Night.
Yeah.
1001 Night. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love this book. I think his influence is in this novel, no? I was concerned. Is the power for me? This book represents the power of the war, no? If you Sherazade saved her life telling stories, no? Do you understand?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's really magic. The power of the words of the stories, no? If you can save your life with the literature, with the stories, with the words, it's very very nice. And I would like so much. Maybe in the future, it's translated into Arabic.
Yeah, very interesting. You're right. I never thought about the similarity there, but there is some magical realism to 1001 Nights because a story saved a person's life. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay, so then I have a question here for Cristina Morgan, and it is this book different from other works that you've done? And did you face anything new in editing this book?
Well, I think it's different than every book has been different. There's been no two books that have been alike. I think that's the goal when you're writing a book is to write something unique. And what was the other part of the questions? What were the challenges?
Yeah, so is it different? And yeah, what sort of new things did you face in editing this book that you didn't face before?
Well, I would say one thing that as a younger editor, this project was mine. Like it wasn't something that someone told me to do, or someone else had left behind, or somebody was helping me with, or that I could get feedback from another staff member. Like apart from the sample, like nobody told me anything what to do, so I did it all on my own. So it's just one of the projects that I did completely independently.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
That must be a fabulous feeling now to see it then in print.
Yeah, just the finished book looks so nice.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, the cover designer really liked the book. She made so many good covers. I kept all of them, but the one we picked was the best.
Yeah, it's a fabulous cover of the book. I really love it. Good. Okay, so a question for me was, Lisa, did you translate the name Olvido? Why or why not? That's an excellent question. I had a lot of, not difficulty, but I thought about the names of the characters a lot because some of the names have meaning. So we have, of course, Clara Laguna and then her daughter, Olvido. Manuela, and then olvido. And olvido in Spanish means, oblivion, obscurity, and that meaning has a lot to do with who the character is. But it didn't seem right to change the character's name in the end. And plus, what were you going to call olvido? Forget or oblivion or obscurity. It doesn't sound like a name in English like it does. It can sound and does sound in Spanish. Um, so I went back and forth and thought about it a lot, and in the end, I decided that all the characters' names, that is who they are, and if someone knows Spanish, then they get that little extra reference, and if not, nothing is lost. How did you think about that decision, Christina Morgan, about the
And I
characters'
think
names?
there's an explanation in the book, like it's explained, because when the baby's name and people are confused, there's a short part where it's told, that it's explained, like why would she name her daughter, like Forget or something.
Yes.
I think people
Exactly.
can pick up on it in that context.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, and we did add that so that it was clear.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cristina Lopez, Pamela says, will you have any book signings in Madrid? Because she is going to be going to Madrid in July.
Okay. Yeah. I don't understand. Is she's going to come to Madrid in July?
She is going to Madrid. Ajá. Y pregunta si ya vas a tener algunas presentaciones para este libro en Madrid. Para la próxima, la nueva.
Yeah. No. There is no for the House of the Impossible Love. No. Now I have just to publish my new novel in Spain. El cielo en un infierno cabe is the title. I don't know how to translate into English. The title is I have the presentation of this new novel in the book fair. Es la feria del libro, in the book fair.
Mm-hmm.
The book fair. Yeah, it was celebrated in Madrid 15 years ago, more or less. It was finished, and I presented my novel in this fair.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm traveling for the Spain, speaking with the press. Press is correct, la prensa.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Presentando the novela is, ¿cómo decir? Introducing the novel or presentando?
Yeah. Introducing.
Speaking about the novel. Yeah.
Yeah.
The new novel.
Okay.
Not the House of Impossible Love. Yes?
Yeah. Do you have any presentations in Madrid in July or?
No. In July, no. In July is all traveling to speak with press, radio and TV and journalists only. No presentation in July. I'm so sorry.
That's too bad. Cristina Morgan, Maria Teresa asked, how did you learn to be an editor?
Did I learn to be an editor?
Yeah.
Well, I started out in journalism, and then just sort of a weird set of circumstances, I ended up living in Spain for a year. I already knew Spanish before I went to Spain. I lived in Valladolid, which is actually in Castilla. And then when I was in Spain, I learned about this program in Columbia University in New York called the Columbia Publishing Course. And it was a summer program for people interested in book and magazine publishing. And so I did that program, and then some months later, I got a job at a literary agency. I actually just answered an ad on Craigslist. So I don't know if Columbia helped or not, but I guess it helped some.
Yeah.
But some months later, like through Columbia, the director of that program suggested me for a job at an editorial house, HarperCollins, which is a big corporate house. And I went there because it was a better job, and I worked under a really good editor. And then I came to Houghton Mifflin and continued to work there. I think it's sort of like you learn on the job. But I think if you read a lot and you just have a natural instinct for what is out there already and what is good writing and what is good storytelling and you know what makes sense within a story, and that's basically it.
And I think that's true for whether you want to be an editor, a translator, or a writer. You just have to read a lot, see what's out there. Yeah, definitely. Good. Okay, so Kozue says, I loved reading this book. I didn't feel like I was reading a translated work. Well, thank you. How long did it take you to translate, and how long did the polishing process take? So, I think the whole process from the time that Cristina contacted me from the publisher to when I delivered it was almost a year. Now, at the beginning, of course, there were the negotiations and that. And then the translation took about 8 months. And then usually I like to leave the book for another month or so and not touch it, and then do one more edit before I finally deliver it, so that I can see it with fresh eyes. It becomes really hard towards the end to see if you're helping or hindering with any of the changes. So yeah, it was almost a year from the beginning. Cristina Lopez, has the book been translated into French?
No, it's not into French. No, I would like, but it's no, at the moment it is not in French.
It's not in French. Okay.
No.
All right.
Okay.
So Ghislaine was wondering that. And let's see here. So there was another question. Can you speak about the translation process? My translation process is it's pretty much the same whether I'm working on a short piece or a long piece. I read the book. I can't even tell you how many times. I read the book, and I read the book again, and I read the book again. I spend a long time just reading and really sort of soaking up the book, letting it just sort of permeate me. And then I start with a draft translation. And once I've done one chapter, I will revise that chapter again and then move on to the next chapter. So I really do it chapter by chapter, and then when I'm done the whole book, I revise the book from beginning to end against the Spanish. So I'm comparing the two to make sure I don't forget anything or leave anything out or misinterpret something. And then only later, after I've had a break, then I just read it as an English again to try to polish all of that translation out. So it's a long process, translating a book, but it's not as long as writing a book. So that's for sure. And okay, so Wendy is asking for Cristina Lopez. The story of the sea that Manuela tells, is that a story that comes from folklore, or did you make up that story?
Make it, I don't understand so good. Is the question
Mhm.
about Manuela Laguna? Is I make up the character or the story?
No, not the character, pero la historia que cuenta Manuela sobre el
Sí.
mar,
Ah, sí,
¿es una
yeah.
historia que viene del folclore española o es algo que usted ya lo creó?
Ah, no, no. The story is all is fiction. It's invented for me. It's not
Mhm.
it's not a Spanish folklore. No, I
Yeah,
imagine the
okay.
story.
I
Okay.
imagined it. It's a great
Mm,
story. I love that part of the book. It's one of my
yeah.
favorite parts. Yeah.
I love to.
Okay, so we're almost running out of time here. I can't believe how fast it is going. It's already almost 3 o'clock. So there's something that I want to do before we sign off is the raffle of the book. So we're giving away 6 copies of the book today. And of course, you've all seen the book, lovely hardcover. And Cristina has sent these, it's hard for you to see, I bet, on my camera, but these lovely cards that John has just put on the bottom there for us to include in the copies of the book. So while we were having our discussion, John was in the background. He took the number of participants here today and just did a random number generator. And he's passing me the names here. So, Alison Charette won a copy of the book. Wotran, who I believe is a phone number, so we'll check on that. Michelle Staffen won a copy. Ana Bajor Siciliati, you won a copy. And I'm not sure, John, is Mary Jane one person or is there Mary and Jane? I'm not sure. I'll check that. But so we'll be in touch with all of the winners, the raffle winners, by email. We have your email when you registered for the presentation, and then I'll get your mailing address and we'll send out a copy of the book to each of you. So congratulations on winning a copy of the book. So it is 3 p.m. So for anyone who has to go, we will wind up the presentation now. I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. It's been really wonderful. I'm available to stay online for a little bit longer to keep answering questions. I'd be happy to do that. Cristina and Christina, if you have a few more minutes, we can keep answering questions, but if you have to go, that's not a problem. So,
Yeah, if someone really has a question they didn't get to ask me and happen to stay a few minutes longer and answer it,
okay. Okay,
I don't
great.
know
How
if
about
people
you?
have questions on that.
Yeah, I think there might be a couple here, so let me look. And Cristina Lopez, do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah, yeah.
¿Algunos minutos más? Yeah, okay, great.
¿Algunos, perdona?
Sí,
¿Alguna?
algunos minutos. ¿Tienes algunos minutos más
Sí,
para?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah?
of course. Yeah, I
Okay,
have, I
okay.
have. No problem.
Excellent. Okay, great, great. So, um, so Christina Morgan, yeah, there was one other here that said, who decided what terms should be kept in normal font? Things like fiesta, caballero. Who decides what goes into italics or things like that? Is that your job? Or
Yeah,
is
I
that
think
the translators?
the translator typically does everything first, and then if they have a question in the middle of something, they'll ask. But usually is decided during the draft, and I think it's just sort of an intuitive decision about what feels right. There's no rule.
Yeah. Okay. Great. For you, Cristina Lopez, it says here, okay, Michelle is asking, do you know how many books are published in Spain a year, and what percentage get translated into English?
Oh, so many books are published in Spain in the year. So many, I think. I don't know really. I think it's not very easy now to publish and to translate into English for Spanish writers. Some are very famous Spanish writers like Arturo Pérez Reverte or Carlos Ruiz Zafón, for example. But it's not so easy. No. And then I think I'm very happy for this reason. No, I think it's great. Yeah, it's very great.
Exactly. No, it is great. And it's great in English too because in English, although it does seem like the number of translations is going up in North America, anyhow, only 3% of books are translated work. So to have a book come in English is a very big deal. It's a very important thing. Alessandra asked, were there culture-specific elements in the book that were hard to translate? And that's a good question. Some of the culture that was in the book was a little bit of history. Part of the book takes place during the Spanish Civil War, and even though there was nothing very specific about the war itself, I did have to have some background knowledge, so that is where I did ask some questions. And all in all, though, this wasn't a super culture-heavy work where it was hard to find a way to express it. It was more about emotion and the characters and the feelings. So it wasn't that culture-heavy. Great. Okay, and the last question from Amal is when is the book for sale? And the book is for sale now. It's available in stores and libraries. It has been published, so for any who are interested in reading it, you can read it. And for those who want a copy, you'll be getting yours in the mail. So I'd like to thank you all again very much for attending. Cristina López, gracias a ti, muchísimas gracias por este libro y por estar aquí hoy día. And Cristina Morgan, tons of thanks. Thanks for allowing me to work on this project with you and for being here today. It was wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.